Have you ever walked into a crowded mall on a weekend and instantly felt your shoulders rise toward your ears? The noise hits you first. Conversations overlapping, music playing from three different stores, someone brushing past your arm, another person standing just a little too close in line. And suddenly, for no real reason, you feel irritated, tense, trapped, maybe even a little panicky. Meanwhile, the people around you seem completely fine, laughing, browsing, taking selfies, and you're standing there thinking, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just enjoy this like everyone else? Maybe you've told yourself you're antisocial or sensitive or just not a people person. Maybe someone else has said that about you. But what if hating crowded places isn't a personality flaw? What if it's your brain doing exactly what it evolved to do? Let me show you something interesting. Imagine your brain as an ancient security system, not a modern, sleek one. I'm talking about a prehistoric guard standing at the entrance of a cave, scanning the horizon for threats. For most of human history, crowds were not normal. Your ancestors didn't stand shoulder to shoulder with hundreds of strangers under fluorescent lights. They lived in small tribes, maybe 30, 50, 100 people at most. Everyone knew everyone, so when your brain finds itself surrounded by hundreds of unfamiliar faces pressed into tight spaces with limited escape routes, it doesn't interpret that as fun Saturday vibes. It interprets it as uncertainty, and uncertainty to your brain is a potential threat. This is where something called the amygdala comes in. It's a tiny almond-shaped structure deep in your brain, and it's basically your internal alarm system. Its job isn't to make you happy, it's to keep you alive. When you're in a crowded place, your amygdala is scanning constantly. Who's that behind you? Why did that person move quickly? Where are the exits? Why is it so loud? Even if nothing dangerous is happening, the sheer amount of stimulation can push your nervous system into high alert. Have you ever noticed how, in a crowded train or bus, you start to feel slightly hyper-aware? You're calculating micro-movements, adjusting your posture, guarding your personal space. That's cognitive load. Your brain is processing an enormous amount of information in a very short time. For some people, that processing is energizing. For others, it's exhausting. And that difference often comes down to temperament. Psychologists have long studied something called sensory processing sensitivity. About 15 to 20% of people are what researchers sometimes refer to as highly sensitive. Not emotionally fragile, not dramatic, just neurologically wired to process stimuli more deeply. Bright lights feel brighter. Loud noises feel louder. Emotional atmospheres feel heavier. Put someone with that wiring into a packed wedding hall or a music festival, and it's like plugging a delicate sound system into a stadium amplifier. The input overwhelms the circuitry. But even if you're not highly sensitive, there's something else at play: personal space. Have you ever noticed how uncomfortable it feels when someone stands too close to you in line? You lean away subtly. You take a half step forward. There's a reason for that. Humans have invisible bubbles around their bodies. Anthropologist Edward T. Hall called this proxemics. We have intimate space, personal space, social space. When strangers invade those inner zones, your body reacts before your conscious mind does. Your heart rate can increase. Stress hormones rise. Muscles tense. Now multiply that by 50 people. It's not that you dislike humanity. It's that your nervous system is being poked repeatedly. And then there's control, or rather the lack of it. Crowded environments often mean unpredictability. You can't move freely. You can't control the noise. You can't easily leave without pushing through people. And humans, at a deep psychological level, crave a sense of agency. When you feel boxed in, even physically, your brain interprets that as a loss of control. That's one reason why elevators packed with strangers can feel so suffocating. Claustrophobia isn't just about small spaces. It's about limited options. But here's something even more interesting. Your dislike of crowds might say something beautiful about you. People who feel drained in crowded spaces often have rich inner worlds. They tend to observe deeply. They notice subtle details. They prefer meaningful one-on-one conversations over surface-level chatter. While others thrive in high-energy group dynamics, you might thrive in depth. Think about it. In a loud party, small talk dominates. Quick exchanges. Laughter that fades fast. But in a quiet cafe with one close friend, conversations stretch. Thoughts unfold. You can actually hear yourself think. Your brain might simply prefer depth over density. There's also social evaluation anxiety, which is more common than we admit. In crowds, especially unfamiliar ones, your brain may switch into a subtle performance mode. How am I standing? Do I look awkward? Is anyone watching me? Even if you're not consciously insecure, the social brain is highly attuned to being observed. Evolutionarily, being judged by the group had real consequences. Rejection could mean isolation, and isolation long ago could mean death. So, when you're surrounded by strangers, your brain doesn't fully relax. It's monitoring your social safety, and that monitoring takes energy. Now imagine you've had a long week. You're already mentally tired. You walk into a crowded supermarket, the fluorescent lights hum, carts squeak, children cry. A stranger bumps into you and doesn't apologize. Your reaction isn't weakness. It's cumulative load. Psychologists talk about something called stimulus overload. When inputs exceed your capacity to process them comfortably, stress rises. It's like too many browser tabs open at once. Eventually, the system slows down. Some people have higher bandwidth, others don't. And neither is morally superior. What's fascinating is that in controlled settings, crowds can actually create feelings of unity and euphoria. Think of concerts, religious gatherings, sports events. There's research showing that synchronized movement, like singing or chanting together, can increase feelings of belonging. But here's the key difference: shared purpose. A random crowd at a mall is just a mass of individuals. A concert crowd is a collective experience. Your brain perceives safety in shared identity. So maybe it's not crowds themselves you dislike. Maybe it's anonymous crowds. There's a subtle but powerful distinction. And let's not ignore modern life. We live in cities far denser than anything our nervous systems evolved for. Urbanization has compressed millions of people into tight spaces. There's constant stimulation, notifications buzzing in your pocket, traffic outside, advertising screens flashing. If you feel overwhelmed in crowded places, you might just be someone whose nervous system hasn't numbed itself to the noise. And that's not a defect. It's sensitivity to environment. But here's where things get empowering. Understanding why you react the way you do gives you options. Instead of labeling yourself as antisocial, you can start seeing patterns. Maybe you schedule crowded activities earlier in the day when you have more mental energy. Maybe you take small sensory breaks. Step outside for fresh air. Put on noise-canceling headphones. Stand near an exit. You work with your wiring, not against it. And sometimes, gently stretching your comfort zone can build resilience. The brain is plastic. Exposure, in manageable doses, can reduce anxiety responses over time. But the key word is manageable. Forcing yourself into overwhelming environments repeatedly without recovery isn't growth, it's burnout. There's also something deeply human about wanting space. In Japanese culture, there's a concept called ma, which refers to the pause or empty space between things. In music, silence makes the notes meaningful. In conversation, pauses give words weight. In life, space gives relationships breathing room. Maybe your discomfort in crowded places is your mind asking for more ma, more room to process, more space to exist without constant input. And in a world that glorifies busyness and packed calendars, honoring that need can feel rebellious. You might have been told that being outgoing is the ideal, that loving parties and festivals is the gold standard of social success. But psychology has repeatedly shown that well-being isn't about how many people you can tolerate at once. It's about how aligned your environment is with your temperament. If your nervous system blooms in quiet gardens instead of loud arenas, that's not a flaw. That's information. Let me ask you something. When you imagine your perfect weekend, does it involve a massive crowd? Or does it involve a handful of people you trust? Or maybe just yourself, a book, and silence? Your answer tells you something about how your brain restores itself. Energy is personal, and maybe the real shift isn't trying to love crowded places. Maybe it's understanding why they drain you and planning your life accordingly. Because here's the paradox. When you stop fighting your nature, you actually become more socially generous. When you've had enough quiet time, enough space, enough recovery, you can show up fully in the moments that matter. You can attend the wedding, the family gathering, the festival, but you do it from a place of choice, not pressure. You know your limits, and limits are not walls, they're boundaries. So the next time you feel that familiar tightness in a packed room, instead of judging yourself, get curious. Is it the noise, the unpredictability, the lack of control, the social monitoring? Your body is giving you data. Listen to it. Because self-awareness is power. When you understand your own nervous system, you stop comparing it to someone else's. You stop asking, why can't I be like them? And you start asking, what do I need? That question changes everything. Maybe you don't hate crowded places. Maybe you just love clarity, calm, depth, space to think, and in a world overflowing with noise, that might be one of your greatest strengths. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your experience. Do crowded spaces drain you, or do they energize you? And what do you think your reaction says about you? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you're curious about how your personality shapes more of your daily reactions than you realize, stick around. There's so much more to explore about the incredible, complex system you call your mind.